When people hear the phrase economic forecast, it's easy to assume it's going to come with a big prediction about where the housing market is headed next. Rates will drop, inventory will open up, prices will swing one way or the other. What stood out most at a recent 2026 economic forecast I attended was how little of that kind of language was actually used. The message was much simpler and much steadier than the headlines we tend to hear. Nothing is breaking. The market is slow, tight, and expensive, and conditions are expected to improve gradually. Now, it's not a dramatic statement, but it's an important one. What the forecast made clear is that today's housing market is not struggling because demand has disappeared. It's being shaped by long-term supply constraints and affordability pressure. Many homeowners are still holding relatively low mortgage rates, which makes selling feel expensive even when life changes. That keeps resale inventory tighter than people often expect. At the same time, buyers are still present, but they're more payment focused and more deliberate than they were a few years ago. That combination tends to support prices even when activity feels slower. This isn't a market looking for a collapse or a sudden rebound. It's a market adjusting to a different rhythm. Interest rates were another area where the forecast was very direct. The idea of returning to 3% mortgage rates simply isn't part of the realistic outlook. Rates in the high fives to around 6% are increasingly viewed as the baseline, not a temporary condition. And historically, sharp drops in rates usually come alongside economic stress, not ideal conditions. Local context matters as well. Here in Clark County, steady job growth and continued in-migration help support housing demand more than national headlines often reflect. That doesn't mean every home sells quickly or that pricing doesn't matter. It does mean the underlying fundamentals here tend to be more stable than the broader narrative suggests. In everyday terms, this outlook points to a market where homes may take longer to sell, buyers move carefully, and pricing accuracy matters more than it did during the frenzy years. Negotiations tend to be calmer and more balanced, not urgent or chaotic. The value of this kind of forecast isn't certainty, it's perspective. And that perspective helps separate what's actually changing from what simply feels unfamiliar. Full details are in this week's Market Pulse Weekly blog. You'll find a link in the description below. See you next week.